Trump versus Ford, the tariff ad that sparked a trade meltdown. Ontario Premier Doug Ford lit a match under U.S.-Canada relations this week with an ad quoting Ronald Reagan's warning that tariffs hurt every American worker. The ad aired during the World Series, angering President Donald Trump, who accused Canada of meddling in U.S. politics and twisting Reagan's words. In retaliation, Trump halted trade talks and threatened a 10% tariff hike on Canadian imports. Ford has stated he'll pause the ad, but the damage may already be done. Ottawa is now scrambling to calm tensions as Ontario's manufacturing sector braces for impact. What began as a clever jab at protectionism has spiraled into a diplomatic firestorm, one that could cost Canadian workers dearly. The feud underscores how fragile North American trade has become when politics and ego collide. So is this feud mostly about trade or pride?
Ultimately, I think it's about both, right? So I think the foundational argument is trade, but the way that it's being handled is two egotistical boys dick swinging with whatever tools they have, right? That's really what's happening. But there's some things to consider here. I don't like how anybody's behaving. I don't like how Trump's behaving. I don't really like how Ford's behaving. Now, if I pare back the attitude and I kind of go, okay, what makes sense though, objectively, maybe from a more economic perspective? A lot of people are very upset with how Trump is handling these tariffs. I'm not necessarily sure that it's the wrong thing for America. It might be the right move. Maybe not the way he's doing it. Maybe not to the degree that he's doing it in the volume and how he's weaponizing them. Okay, cool. But if you want to reshore manufacturing, if you want to, and production and sort of try to rebuild the American economy, I don't think it's the worst idea. Again, it's nuanced and complex. So what I'm saying there is like, I understand the need or the use for them from Trump's perspective. His strategies hasn't been great. But then, so the reason I'm saying that is I can understand sort of the interest in America first. You can see how America has definitely lost a lot, in how they fund some of these global organizations, how a lot of their, you hear what Trump says, like a lot of globalization has taken a lot of manufacturing production away from America, taken a lot of money out of their pockets. Like, okay, I see that point. Is his silver bullet solution with tariffs going to work? Probably not 100%. It's not going to solve all of their problems, but he had to do something radical because the country's like, they're burning through $1 trillion in new debt like every few months right now. You got to do something dramatic to try to correct course. I don't know enough to think of a better solution than to try to start in the position of tariffs. So I don't have a big problem with it, to be quite honest with you. Now, when you look at it from Canada's perspective, they did have an opportunity to create a trade deal with him. Instead, what they did was they used it as leverage to win another election here. That's what the Liberals did. Instead of being like, okay, let's sit down and hash this out. Like, obviously, you're reworking the trade deals with everybody around the world. Everyone's pretty much come to terms except for Canada and China, right? So we had an opportunity. Sure, things were going to be a little tougher at home. But if you look at how things were over the last, I don't know how many decades, you could argue that America was kind of getting the short end of the stick on this deal. Okay. So go sit down and figure it out. But the Liberals use it as sort of this divisive tactic to make sure they won another election. And it worked for them. Great. Power and profit over the people. I get it. What I don't get is why a premier of Ontario is getting involved at this degree, to this level. It's not even his job. This is between federal governments. So for him to be in this, like, yes, it's hurting Ontario, but he should be lobbying with the federal government to then go make a deal with Trump so that Canada's in a better position. Taking our tax dollars from Ontario and then weaponizing them against the Republican Party down there is pure ego. It's pure stupidity. Yes, the foundation is still tariffs, but it's just all ego. I can't even believe he did it. Like before it really popped off, like a week and a half ago when I saw this, I wrote a short article and I was just like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Then it got sort of, international attention. But now you've got two guys with big egos that are just going to keep going at each other. And you look at the situation, I don't see how Canada comes out on the positive side of things here in any way, right? Because they've nuked all trade negotiations for right now. They just increased the tariffs by another 10% on Canada because they continued to run that ad last night again at the baseball game. So I don't see what tools we have in our belt to mitigate this. I think we're in trouble.
Yeah. And to me, whether who's in the right or wrong, that doesn't really matter to me as much as I'm just trying to figure out, what's going on here. And so I think the tariff play is, yes, it's an economic thing as well. But okay, if you know that conflict is rising around the world and there is a real possibility of a world war,
Yes.
now I'm not saying that I think Trump is trying to stoke that, but if that is on the horizon, then you need to have a manufacturing base because
Yes.
you cannot rely on other countries and nations in that time. Maybe some certain allies and stuff like that. You know, it was a lot of America's industrial base that fueled the Allies' World War II efforts. You know, there's a really good saying that World War II was won with British intelligence, American steel, and Russian blood. But so if you know that this is potentially on the horizon, then you want to start bringing that back so that, you know, we talk about it being cars and all of this kind of stuff right now. But hey, if shit really pops off, we're going to need these factories rolling out tanks and military vehicles.
That's what they did last time.
Right.
100%.
And so I think that he's trying to, now this is just, again, I don't have any, you know, internal details or anything that's pointing me towards this, just kind of a sense as to how these kind of things operate over time. But so I think that's a major play here. And also what's happening in that same aspect of him trying to bring manufacturing back is also him trying to get countries to bend the knee, essentially pull countries into alliances, force their hands. There's no fence sitting anymore. Like, are you going to be on the side of the
East
West?
or West? The lines are deep. Let's go. Yeah.
And I'm gonna cut that line and see who's on which side. And I think, you know, we've shown we were the only initial retaliatory tariffs.
Yes.
It was us and China. And so it's like, okay, are you guys going to keep playing this globalism game where nations get stomped on, in which, you know, all the globalists even say themselves that like China is the model. This is the way forward. So are we going to have some like socialist globalist governance, or are we going to actually worry about our independent nations again? And so I think that there's this much bigger thing at play here than most people are thinking about when it comes to the tariffs and the economic wars and all of this kind of stuff. And so in that scenario, if you just think about the psychology of these kind of things, right? It's like, okay, if you have, whether it's a business deal, whether it's nation to nation, anything, it's like, if you don't have leverage, I'm not going to even act as if you have an equal say at this table. And so I think that's a lot of this, what this bullying is, in which I can agree comes off very, very brash and not definitely not, you know, what we would consider typically as statesman-like. But at the same time, I think it's very foolish to know that you've got a guy who's got all the cards on the table, other than China. China's the only one that really, as far as like a singular nation that holds similar cards, if not maybe more than America. But you've got the guy with all the marbles saying, hey, like, pipe down. And you think you're, as the Ontario premier with literally zero cards.
Yes.
You're sitting here going, I'm going to boast my chest. It's like, what do you think is going to happen? Because think about it like a prison yard. If you've got the toughest guy on the yard and he allows the weakest person to come up and start mouthing off to him in the middle of the yard, he's like, I need everybody else in this yard to know that this is not okay.
Yes.
And so that's the signal being sent. And it's like, if you can't understand, now I'm not saying that you should just cower, but you have to understand that these are really the play that's going on, and you need to outsmart them. You're not going to outmuscle them.
100%. But that's exactly what I'm seeing. Is it's just pure ego. It's just pure stupidity. The fact that he even thought he should throw a dime of our tax dollars at it when it's not even his role, to me, is the most ridiculous thing. And now EB's saying the same thing, like, oh, we're going to do it too. Guys, sit down and shut up. Go lobby with the federal government, get them to put a deal in place. Because the thing is, the further you go, now you have to, it's a further trip back to get him to the table. So now what do you have to give up? Now what do you have to say? Now what do you have to do? Because now he's in this position where Carney, I don't know how Carney repairs this right now in any real way, unless he's like, oh, just take our oil. Like, what are you going to do? What does your deal look like? You know, so I mean, maybe I'm not going to, maybe dark horse is the wrong idea, but maybe, and this is just, you know, this is sort of a thinking about it from like a 4D chess move, which I don't think Ford would understand. So if this is the case, then I would say that he was manipulated into doing this.
Mm-hmm.
If for some reason the federal government of Canada would like to be deeper into bed with China rather than the United States and can't convince the people of Canada that that's the right move, then you get a pawn like Ford to throw $75 million at an ad that you know is going to do nothing but piss off Trump. Because even someone like wearing a helmet just for their own safety because they're that stupid would have known what was going to happen here.
That's interesting because then you don't have to sell it and be like, this is why we're going to. It's just like, we have no other choice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're handcuffed.
Yeah.
Trump is not giving us an opportunity to get back to the table. We have to align ourselves with, kind of this more Euro-China and China kind of alliance thing. And we can't. Well, maybe we'll figure something out down the road with the US, but this is where the better deal is. And you and I talk a lot how deeply infiltrated China is in our country. And, if I'm China and I'm pulling some strings, now this move starts to make a bit of sense. Again, this is completely theoretical. I have no idea. I'm just sitting here going, how could they be this stupid? Are they this stupid? Or is this just now the story they get to say? Well, Trump's bad. He wants to make us the 51st state. And, he won't trade with us. Any increased tariffs. Again, we have no choice. He's the bad guy. Back to the old guy I talked to on the street the other day. What's the mainstream media saying about this?
Right.
So that I don't know. Again, that could be the play from the federal government's perspective. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think too, when we talk about, incompetence or malice, a lot of people think they're mutually exclusive. It's like, no. These people can have very bad intentions or self-serving intentions at the very least, and also be dumb.
Yeah, well,
like,
You serve both things.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, like you convince Ford he's going to be the hero, but you're using him as from the federal government's perspective, especially considering he's a conservative leader. Like it's the perfect move.
Yeah,
because it doesn't seem like some liberal Fed plan. It seems like, well, he's a conservative premier. He's been elected multiple times. I mean, he's so it's when you look at it from political lines too, you can tell a pretty good story there now if you're the liberal government. If you're Carney, you've got your story set.
And too, I mean, you see, especially we know this, right, with Ford and Polyev, that he's definitely, at least when it comes to political, he hasn't outright said it, but it's definitely looked like he's been trying to position himself as the federal leader of the conservatives.
No, he is. I know enough people, and I have enough inside information from people that that's their plan.
Yeah,
that's what they're doing. They saw a point where they thought they could basically make a maneuver around him, and that's why you push back on that last election.
So I also wonder if this is some of that, of the ego of just being like, all right, fine, I'm going to be the guy that stands up and make the claim and show as to why I need to, but then it just backfires maybe too.
Yeah,
it could be, it's not even that, let's say the federal government or anyone came across and said, hey, like, we think you should run this ad, but it could also just be that he's dumb enough to think that he holds enough cards to take on Trump and be this guy that makes a bold stand.
Last time, what did he try to do? He tried to increase the tariffs on energy coming out of Ontario. How quickly did he put his tail between his legs and turn back the other way? Like literally less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
So he knows exactly what was going to happen. So I think this is, I mean, again, we'll see how this all shakes out, but just putting it out there.